under the renewable fuel standard, which is what kind of makes it so you have to do ethanol and stuff like that. And it's an artificial government cost to force people to use corn as 10% of your oil. And by the way, ethanol is extremely inefficient, and it actually costs more from a carbon standpoint to create ethanol from growing the corn to processing it than it would if you didn't. But be that as it may, the corn ethanol subsidies, which is the RFS standard, the renewable fuel standard is part of, have actually caused U.S. refineries to go out of business because there's rules. You have to buy a certain number of renewable fuel standard credits. And these credits, if you don't have those credits, if you haven't produced enough ethanol or other biofuels at your refinery, you have to buy somebody else, another company has produced more than they need to have for their company. And so they sell them on the open market. And so a company that was currently not processing ethanol has to go off and pay a company that does produce ethanol a bunch of money in order to be able to meet the federal standards. And it's called RINs credits. I'm not going to get into the details, but it's an artificial unit of value that you have to meet certain criteria in order to be able to keep your license. And we've actually had, in the last 4 years, we've had manufacturers, actual people who refine oil, generally small refiners, go out of business because they can't afford the RINs credits. Well, get rid of that. You want to have more refining? Get rid of the RINs credits. It's a stupid standard. It's a stupid rule that the only reason it exists is because people have to go through Iowa to get a nomination for the presidency. And if you got rid of the RINs credits, you would effectively open the door for a lot more energy production and refining in this country. And you would open up new refineries that have been shut down. You would be opening up and you'd be creating more refinery capacity. This is simply by opening up refineries that have been shut down and doing some refurb on them to update them. But you wouldn't have these refineries are ones that you couldn't afford to retrofit to make them fit the ethanol standards because they didn't produce enough oil, or they produced it for niche audiences like kerosene or other things like that doesn't have corn in it. And so this is a simple way to increase their refining capacity significantly right now. But you won't see the Biden administration doing that because no, they want to choke our refining capacity. And that, my friends, is the true story about how you actually get from point A to point B to getting pretty immediate increase in domestic manufacturing, domestic production of oil, domestic production of natural gas, domestic production of gasoline. And so that's within this scope of increasing it within 6 to 9 months.